If I were to ask classic rock fans who is the greatest guitar player since Jimi Hendrix, most of them would probably give me a really quick answer, and that answer would be Eddie Van Halen. But here's the question I want to ask you today. Who's the best guitarist since Eddie Van Halen? Now chew that one over and leave your choice down in the comments. Eddie Van Halen changed the guitar completely. He changed the way we look at the instrument, he changed the way we look at guitar tone, he changed technique, and he changed the way guitars were even built. So in a lot of ways, Eddie was to the late 70s and 1980s what Hendrix was to the late 60s. He was kind of like a reset button. There is a before and after moment. So there is a pre-Hendrix era and the post-Hendrix era. There is a pre-Eddie era and a post-Eddie era. And who's the greatest in the post-Eddie Van Halen era? But let's define what we mean by greatest or best. So instead of rules or qualifications, let's just think about general categories of innovation, technical skill, songwriting, tone, and maybe most importantly would be cultural impact. Did this person, no matter how gifted they were, actually influence the world and other players? So here are a few names that might naturally come up in a discussion like this. Steve Vai, of course, Joe Satriani. They were the immediate followers of Eddie Van Halen, and they're both extremely gifted guitarists who did their very best to understand and integrate what Eddie was doing on the guitar without copying him per se, and they're very good sources of analysis when it comes to Eddie's playing. So if you want to dig deep, you can start with these guys. They know a lot about Ed's playing and what it means musically. Some other names that might come up might be neoclassical guitarists like Yngwie Malmsteen, and he is in a different lane than Eddie, but I would argue that his songwriting and overall cultural impact is really minimal when you place him up against somebody like Eddie Van Halen. Then there are players, of course, like Dimebag Darrell or Tom Morello, who really did do a lot of innovative things on the guitar. And then there are even later players like Jack White, or our heavily technical shredders like John Five and Buckethead. So these are some names that might be thrown out there, but that's not an exclusive list. You could put up any guitarist you think fits the description of being a game changer in the same way that Ed was. So this is what I want to know from you. Who do you think is the greatest rock guitarist since Eddie Van Halen, and why do you think that? And what did they do? What did they bring to the instrument? And how do you think they're influencing other players today? And one of the guitarists I would put up there would be Buckethead, just in his technical ability and his range of playing, and he's what you might think of as an emotional shredder, which I think is a new kind of hybrid that may or may not have legs. In other words, this might be an archetype of guitarist that continues to develop. There may be more and more guitarists coming out who are emotional and hyper technical. I want to make it clear that I don't think that there is a game-changing guitarist like that right now on the scene, but I'm not opposed to you suggesting one, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. So leave your comments in the section below. MusicGuru here, asking you to help us on our march to 10,000 subscribers.